What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it. This is episode 34 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. Now, normally, I go through things, and when we look at our like, let's say our own resume, for instance, we look at that and we say, I've done all these things, and nobody likes to talk about themselves. And when we go through different things like that, we think, a lot of us, at least I do, think that, oh, that's just I'm talking myself up, and I don't want to be so, let's say, what's the word? So, arrogant or whatever. And it's not arrogant to talk about yourself sometimes, especially as you've done things in your life that are fantastic. Now, when you fill out a resume, you have to go through all these different things. You're like, oh man, I totally forgot about that or whatever. And then sometimes some people have to remind you, say, hey, don't forget to put that in there. And you're like, oh, I totally forgot that I even did that. But we don't always look at ourselves. We're looking so forward and trying to go to the next thing that we don't think about all the things that we've done in our past. And sometimes we have to have other people that are close to us come alongside us and say, hey, don't forget this thing. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. We forget about who ourselves are, if that makes any sense. But, or even if the sentence makes sense, I don't know. Anyways, the idea is that sometimes you got to step outside of yourself and look at yourself and realize, wow, I've done all these different things. And not to say that, hey, I'm great or I'm cool or anything like that, but to say you are doing good in life. You're doing so well, in fact, that you're helping other people and you're supporting other people and you're making a difference in other people's lives. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because on today's episode, I've got a guest on here who has so many different things on his resume that it's so in depth that the amount of things that he does, and he's probably so humble that he doesn't want to talk about all of them. However, I want to get it out there because there's so much to it and that we can learn so much from it. He's a deputy sheriff. He's currently assigned to the narcotics division. He's a former SWAT officer, a team leader, been a campus security officer, been a school resource officer, patrol deputy, and patrol sergeant. Before all that, he was a police officer for a smaller town. He's got a master's degree in administration, is a public speaker, and talks about everything from SWAT to working out to PTSD awareness. He's a martial arts instructor. That's why I knew I liked him. And he's got just a positive attitude. And if you get to know him, you just see how positive this guy is. And he just wants to see everybody do better in life. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce today's guest, which is Mr. Eric McCants. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, sir.
Hello, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Man, I was going through all your different stuff, and I could read your bio and all the different things, but there's nothing like actually talking to the person and saying, yes, you start box checking, but when you can actually put into, well, I did this, but there was also this that involved, and it took me this, and maybe I didn't get it on my first try, and I had to really work and strive to get where I'm at. I'm assuming you're as human as the next guy, and you had to scrape and fight and get to where you are, not because somebody gave it to you, but because you earned it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about yourself. Who is Eric McCants?
Well, currently I'm 30 years old. I just turned 30 this year. I could feel it. But like I said, I'm married, have 5 great kids. Like I said, I work for the Burke County Sheriff Department, which is in Waynesboro, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, I'm assigned to narcotics as a sergeant. I'm a member of the SWAT team. And like I say, I'm in the process of looking for a state or federal law enforcement job and to become an adjunct instructor. And that's just part of what I'm trying to get into right now.
Nice. So you're right in the center of time in life where I can go somewhere, and I've been somewhere, and you have this wiggle room to say,
Yes, sir.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So who is let's go back in time though, because I always like to go back in time with everybody that comes on. And who was little Eric? What did little Eric like to do? What was his thing when he was a kid?
I could say my mother had us in different things. Like most kids play sports stuff. My mother had us cross stitching. Like she used to buy these different patterns of birds and flowers and stuff. And it kept us quiet for hours. She'll put me, my brother, and sister in different corners. We'll get our needles and thread, and we'll just sit there for hours and cross stitch. And, we try to see who made the best bird or best flower. Additionally, she had us very big in music. Like I say, we all started with string instruments. I started with the violin. My brother played viola and violin. He actually became pretty good. He went off to college from scholarship. My sister played the cello. I ended up switching over to brass instruments, was a trumpet and baritone when I got to middle school. Partially because I thought a person my size don't need to be playing the violin, but that's neither here nor there. Like I said, she had us in different things like that. She had us going to a conservatory program, playing the jazz bands and different things like that. Then eventually I got into sports and to martial arts. And then, like I say, I kind of let the music stuff and all that go behind me. And then, like I say, I got real big into wrestling in high school. Like I said, I started taking karate with my cousin, and that's kind of how it all developed. But yeah, in the early beginnings, like I said, I was just a normal little kid, played, get in trouble all the time, being the youngest child, mischievous. That's just how it was.
Sure.
So that's basically how it started.
Right. So you getting into sports and getting all these things where you are now being more active. I'm guessing, I'm assuming you didn't stay inside, just watch TV all the time. Your mom made you go outside and play most of the time, or did you want to?
She did, or I even snuck out the house sometimes just to get out the house. He's getting in trouble. Like I say, we have friends across the street that had a trampoline, and sometimes she's like, "You can't go outside." Then, like I say, once she went to sleep, back door was open. I said, "We was gone."
Right. You got to get on that trampoline, do some flips and whatever.
Yeah,
huh? Yeah.
Got to work on it.
Well, and that's the thing is, I have a lot of the guests that I have come on here, and they talk about their childhood. That's what they're doing. They're going outside. They're playing. It was their parents had to drag them back inside. It's dark outside. You need to be inside. And I think at least I did. I grew up in a time when it was when the lights come on, you better be back home. If the lights turn on and you're not home, you be
problems.
Yeah, you're looking at some various missing out on things. You're not going to get to do things you want to do. That includes sleeping comfortably and not with your butt sore. So
yes,
because your mom will whip you. I know it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the idea. Is everybody, a lot of the firefighters, police officers, veterans that I speak to on here, that's their thing. Is they were outside players, and and then they were active in sports and things like that in school. Being that you did all that music, do you still kind of dabble in it a little bit, or you still know how to play it, or is it completely behind you?
My trumpet, I could play a little bit. Like I say, every now and then I might pull it out just to blow it. I'm not going to say I'm real proficient with it anymore, but like I say, I could play a little bit. I know my brother still can play music. And like I say, he used to teach people and all that stuff. But me, as far as the music part, if I practice a little bit, I probably can, get back to where I was. But that takes time. Like I say, I don't even know if my armature will still be the right way. It takes a little minute to get right.
Sure. So then you get into sports, you get into wrestling and karate. I'm guessing wrestling was in school and karate was outside of school.
Wrestling started when I was in 9th grade. And then, like I say, I started karate when I was about 10th grade going to 11th. Like I said, my cousin came down from Alabama. And like I said, he was already a 3rd-degree black belt. And his father was a master in Kung Fu. And then they opened up a karate school up here in Augusta. Then, like I said, they started training me. And that's how I began with karate. But like I said, I wrestled all through high school. I played football. I did soccer to stay in shape, which we basically at my school, we didn't know what we were doing. We just run around. That's all we did.
Yeah.
I say we would be 50. We were just running around trying to basically hit people. That's just basically what we did. And I did track. I did the discus and shot put, but it wasn't anything spectacular about it. But football and wrestling were my main sports.
That was it. That was the thing, huh? And every Friday night you had the pads on, sidelines, getting out there, and then on. And then you had meets you had to go through in the wintertime for wrestling and whatnot. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Cutting weight.
Yep, that's right. So was it a specific style of karate that you did, or was it kind of a what?
Yeah, we started off, like I said, my uncle taught us Kung Fu Wushu, which is a type of Kung Fu.
Right.
But my cousin, he started in Yoshikai Karate, which is Okinawa style.
Mhm.
It's just basically a hard form. And
Right.
basically they blended the styles together. But basically it was Yoshikai Karate was the main part. Then we had some Kung Fu influences in it. And like I said, we went to different various tournaments. It was basically on the Yoshikai Karate, which is basically in Alabama parts, but you have some schools in Georgia. And then eventually we branched from other, he created his own school.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, we train in Shito-ryu over here.
Mhm.
At least I do. And my instructor was actually, he was his teacher was the son of Kenwa Mabuni, who developed Shito-ryu in Okinawa. So kind of a little bit of a lineage that we're able to follow here. So that's
Yes,
pretty
sir.
cool. Pretty cool.
Mhm.
So you obviously you graduated high school. You didn't get to stay in high school forever. So what'd you do after you got out of high school?
Well, I went off to college. I stayed in the same area I was at, but like I said, I graduated high school when I was 17, but I started school early. Anyway, college was a little too much for me being that age,
Yeah.
having all that freedom, trying to wake up early, trying to go to class and be responsible.
Right.
My mother used to take me to school, but basically I didn't go to class. So eventually I had to academically withdraw from school. And then, like I say, my mother said, you need to do something. So I got a job at a local grocery store and I worked there for about a year or so. While doing that, it was an officer there that worked special duty. And he talked to me about some things. My mother was really on my back, like say, you need to get back in school. You need to find something to do. And, being the person I was basically trying to be an asshole. I was like, okay, I'll find something. So the officer told me, like, man, you should join the police academy. I'm like, I went to school for business management. I was thinking I was going to either become a math teacher or run a business.
Right.
But like teachers are now, I would never be a teacher. But anyway, I talked about the police academy and he was like, okay, you should sign up. You might be all right with it. I was like, I guess. But my mother wanted me to do something. So I was like, okay, shoot, I'll do it. Eventually going through the police academy, I ended up loving it, joined it, got on the job. And then, like I say, I've been here ever since.
That's cool. Cause yeah, you can't, I've worked in grocery also, and you can't do that. I mean, there's people that do it their whole life. That's their career. I've known people that were in it for 20 something years or more. I couldn't do it, man. That's a different world for me. I mean, I don't know. I'm not dogging anybody that does it, but what I'm saying is that it's not for me.
That's what I told her. I said, my wife works in the food industry and she's a manager. I said, I could never. I know how people act about their food. I said, I definitely from being in law enforcement, I cannot work in that industry.
Right. So you said that guy that officer was talking to you, was it ever anything that was on your radar where you said, maybe I want to be a police officer or anything like that? Or was it just?
It's just a whim. Basically, like I used to do like little different security things, me and my cousin, because people knew we did martial arts, but I never really thought about being a police. I never really paid police officers any attention. Like I knew some of them, but I never like thought about me going to the academy or anything like that doing it. But like I said, he was talking to me about it. And like I said, my mother was really on my back about, you need to find something to do. I was like, this take me about 3 or 4 months to do. I said, it'd be something I could do. I said, I didn't even know what the pay was like, anything like that. I didn't even know what all police officers did, but I went through the academy, fell in love with the job. And then, like I say, that's where I'm at right now.
And that's it. So, yeah. And it's funny when people, they grow up, they don't even think about what they're going to do. And they just think I'm going to do this. And there's going to be a job waiting for me at some point. And you don't realize the steps you have to take to go get something. Sure. And yeah, when you look at it and you're wondering why wasn't this ever on my radar? But it's almost as if you look back at yourself and say, hey, I was made for this. I was made to be outside. It's made to be, rough house. I've always done stuff that kind of prepared me for this. And I'm fitting this like a round peg in a round hole. It's where you belong, right?
Yes, sir.
So so in Georgia, you go to the police academy on your own, or do you have a sponsored, department that helps you out, or how does it work?
It's different ways. Like I said, when I went, it was at a college called Augusta Technical School. And basically you can use what they call the Hope Scholarship to pay for it. They used to do that at that place. So that's how I went. But you could do it several ways. You could pay out of pocket yourself, or you can do like a contract with a department you go to. Basically, like they'll push you through the academy, but you got to give them 2 years after you finish with the academy. Right. So I went through it, and basically, like I say, the Hope Scholarship and Pell paid for it for me. That's how I went through it.
Oh, okay. And so you go through there, did you know you have a job afterwards, or did you have to still apply for a job after you got out, or what?
Most people had to apply for a job. The cool thing about it was like my instructor when we first started was chief of police for the department I went to. But halfway through the academy, the instructor, who was my sheriff now, but he had a chief job, in Waynesboro Police Department halfway through the academy. So he left and we got another instructor. But when I was in class, he told me, he said, once you graduate, if you want a job, I got one for you. He's like, man, you can make $10.30. I was like, oh, hell yeah. At that time, I'm like, oh, I ain't never made that much money. I was making $7.25 at a grocery store. I'm like, shit, this is coming up. I'm like,
right.
So I went on with him. And like I said, the rest is history from there.
And so you're looking at, what year was that?
2011.
2011. And you're making $10 an hour?
Yes.
I guess in Georgia, that's good money, because over here on the West Coast, not so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, not anymore. I mean, but it's still departments, and that's what I tell people about, like, what's so bad about, especially like southern states, like the pay is pretty bad. Like you got some places, I was looking at some places in Mississippi, you make like $31,000 a year, but some places still pay $10 an hour. We start you off right now at my department, maybe $16, $17 an hour, which is a little bit better. Yeah. I mean, but the cost of living is different in different places. You got to take that into factor. So but $10 was pretty good for me.
Yeah, my wife was watching some show where it was like House Hunters or something like that, and they were in Atlanta, and the cost of houses and the size of the houses were just, compared to West Coast, it's ridiculous. This giant house for this smaller amount of money, and you're like, wow, we can get. And so it's just kind of funny. But everybody always brings up, the humidity of Georgia. I said, well, it gets warm, doesn't it?
Oh, it gets warm, and then like I say, it gets muggy because it rains a lot, and then like I said, that humidity, it take you out here if you don't watch it.
Yeah. So you're going through that. You go through the academy, and then you get this job offer, and you say, hey, okay, cool. And you go work this job at Waynesboro. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that was it, huh? That was the coolest thing you've done so far in your life.
Yeah, I mean, the drilling I got, like I said, when I left the police academy, he sent me straight to a specialized division called housing. Basically, which is like they work in like all the housing areas in the city and basically the trouble areas. And like I say, it was just me and my partner, which it's not really a big city, but basically any problem that went on, they sent us to. And like I say, man, we were just going from call to call, just upbeat foot chases, car chases, and all that. I was like, oh, this is it right here. I said, this is all I need right here.
Yeah, and when you're going call to call, everybody talks about, oh man, you're so busy. Yeah, man, it makes the shift go by fast. It makes you don't have to, you're not, okay, I'm bored, I want to do something, and go get in trouble. Yeah. What do they say? Idle hands, devil workshop, that sort of thing. Yes, so you don't have that. You don't have any of that. So you're working there, Waynesboro. How long did you work there?
I worked there for a year and a half.
And what made you move on?
Well, like I said, even then I was still kind of young. I was 20 years old when I first started out in Waynesboro. Being young, like I said, in that year and a half, I had like 12, 13 write-ups for various things, for speeding, losing equipment, report writing, social media, just a plethora of things. And like I said, my chief used to talk to me all the time. He's like, Eric, you need to calm down, get yourself together. But like I said, at the end of the day, like I said, I stood understand the importance of a law enforcement officer and that we're held to a higher standard. Right. So I was still, like I was in college, I was still, partying, doing crazy stuff. And he's like, Eric, certain things you can't do because you're a law enforcement officer. People look at you differently. You're going to be held to a higher standard. I didn't get that. And then eventually, he brought me in the office. He's like, hey, man, I know you're going to be a great officer one day. You're going to do good and all that stuff. But just at this time, we can't go any further. And like I said, from there, he let me go. So that's how I ended my first job. Yeah, it happens.
That's frustrating, huh? So did it take a bit for you to get back onto it? Get back into it?
No, actually, like I said, it took me about 2 months. After I left there, one of my investigators that worked there, that was a lieutenant, he got the chief of police job at Payne College. And then he brought me over there as a sergeant on the night shift over there. And that's where I started working over there for about 2 years.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
And was working at a college different than obviously working in a city, right?
Yes, it's a lot more political. Basically, they want you to police people, but they don't want you for them to get in trouble. Like say, they can get in trouble. They said basically they'll try to handle the punishment themselves. But I tell them, I said, they're breaking the law. I said, you can't handle that part. But then, they try to get all political on it. I'm like, at the end of the day, I said, they're breaking the law. They need to go to jail. And they're like, oh, no. I'm like, okay. I say, y'all can decide that in court. I said, I'm not better get in trouble. I say, but I mean, at the end of the day, I know you got to handle kids with care. It's a different thing. Like I say, you can't take everything too seriously. But still, at the end of the day, they got to understand that it's consequences to the action. So we had to have a coming to Jesus meeting because before we came there, it wasn't a police department. My chief at the time, the investigator that became chief, he created a police department. Him and one of my good friends, Charles Prescott, they created the first police department there, and they had security guards there at first. So they felt that that certain things wouldn't apply. But you got to understand, like at the end of the day, it's a police entity. laws apply and they have to be followed. Like I say, you can't just do what you want to on this college campus and think that no consequences will be, for your actions.
Right. Right. Yeah. I guess that would be just that. It was when you were just saying they want you to police them, and I was gonna try to figure out where you were going next with your sentence, but in my mind it was you got to police them, but you got to not police them. So there's that both sides of things, and you got to
Pretty much.
and that's so frustrating because you're trained to do a job, you're trained to do it a certain way, and then they say no, don't do it that way. I want you to do it this way. I want you to do whatever, and so it's got to be frustrating when you get politics involved. And I think we all know this side of it because politics is always a thing that's, whether it's legislature or new laws or old laws that, are no longer enforceable or whatever the case is, we're always dealing with the politics side of things. And we always got to be, like you said, held to that higher standard. So it's kind of a big deal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, it took a little getting used to it, but it also helped with my officer discretion about, like I said, when I worked in Waynesboro, I was, that cop, like I said, you do the crime, you're going to jail. Let's say it wasn't hey, it was an accident. No, it wasn't none of that. I said, you did it, you're going to jail. I said, you're going to get this ticket. And that's just how it was. Right. And once I got up there, I mean, it taught me a little bit better to be a little bit more understanding to basically, like say, because even my chief, when I was at my first Waynesboro thing, he sent me to a verbal judo class. And he said, yeah, you can solve problems with your hands and all that stuff. But he said, sometimes you got to learn how to talk to people, learn how to de-escalate the situation so it doesn't get out of hand. So it just started helping me out a little bit more.
Yeah, there's that gift of gab that you kind of develop. And it's hard for the young guys to get. But after some time, it's so useful. I remember I worked in this small department, and it was just I was the only police officer on. And I come across this guy. He was wanted murderer, and he had warrants and stuff. But I was able to sit, and we're in the back of an alley, and I'm talking to him, and we're just having a conversation. And he's like, yeah, blah blah blah. And I talked him into handcuffs, and I get him in the back of the car. I get him delivered, and he was like, thanks for doing this. You're going to prison for I don't know how many years, and you're telling me thanks. Yes, I knew that if I was by myself, if I get into a fight, am I ready to kill this guy? And I was like, well, I'm so young. I didn't know where I was at, on that moral spectrum. So as much as we like to think I can do it, you don't know. Yeah. You don't know.
Yeah, you never know until it's that time.
Yeah. And so I worked every angle I could think of to just de-escalate this guy and calm him down and talk him into handcuffs. And it worked out. But if you don't have that gift of gab, man, that's just a tool. It's one of the many tools that we carry with us all the time. I think that's very important.
Yeah, my sheriff was real big on us just building a rapport with the people that we're with. He said, man, that's one of the best ways to help solve crimes in any capacity is building a rapport with them.
Right. There's, Robert Peel. You know who Robert Peel is, right?
Yes.
So he developed the whole idea of police work back in the 1800s. And so his whole thing was, we don't have a job. The police aren't the police without the citizens saying that we're the police.
Yes, sir.
We don't, I mean, aside from paying taxes and aside from all that stuff that pays for the police department, we don't have the authority to arrest. We don't have the authority to do all this stuff if the people haven't already said and submit to the authority that the police have. So it's kind of a double-edged sword when, we say, yes, I have the authority that you tell me to have over you. And then you allow me to have that authority by enforcing whatever law. And so that's why you're absolutely right. You've got to develop that relationship with your citizens. You got to develop that thing where you're able to work with them and not against them. And everybody's on the same, because we all want to have this peaceful livability in the areas in which we're in, as opposed to this unruly and lawless, where nobody wants to get along. And who wants to live there? Who wants to raise their families? Who wants to build a business? Who wants to do any of that in a place like that?
No one.
Yeah. So you're at the college, and then you're there, you said, for about 2 years?
Yes, sir.
And then what happens?
Well, my first chief, that was my instructor, calls me. He's like, hey, he got a job as chief of police over the Board of Education, which is K through 12 schools in Richard County, which has about maybe 40, 50 schools. Anyway, he's like, we have some positions open. If you like, you can come work for me again. I was like, sure. Okay. Yeah. So I went back over there with him. And like I say, from the time that I left from the first department, like I said, I was young then, so I kind of took it personally, like, oh man, he's trying to mess up my career. But
Right.
over time, I eventually understood what he was doing. He was trying to basically help me become a better person, helping me grow up, and which I needed that. So I mean, it took me a little minute, but I was finished with it by then. But anyway, like I said, I started working there at the school system, which was about a year and a half before he became sheriff, and he brought me on down here at Burke County. But school system's a little different. Kids are a little different. Even with college kids, like say, high school kids are all right, but those middle school kids, they're horrible. Plain and simple. They are horrible. And I told people, I said, man, I say, y'all better than me. I say, for these kids, they be talking to people any type of way. They like throw books. They get these anger issues, tantrums, whatever you want to call it. And they, like I said, basically, like I say, what happened was like, where was that happy medium? Like the teacher said that they couldn't handle it at this situation. The principal didn't want to get involved in shit. Then they'll call us. And like I said, as us being police officer, we're like, hey, you need to get your act together and do what you need to do. And then, like I said, there comes this big issue. But like I said, at the end of the day, you can't, at the end of the day, it's still juveniles. And I said, and that's where you got to learn how to talk them down and all that stuff. But some of them, it's just no talking them down. But like, one thing I learned about working in the school system, that a lot of them kids like have those real bad issues. Like they come from some very bad homes. And like I said, man, they come from serious situations. Like they're taking care of their younger brothers and sisters. They're the only one home. They don't have power at the house. Just a whole bunch of different things. And you got to take those things into account. I mean, you can't excuse their actions, but sometimes you be like, man, this kid has gone through more than I have, and I'm an adult. Right. And they're doing that right now at that age. And it kind of affects you, but you still got to do your job. So it's just one of those catch-22. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
Right. And it's you can almost tell where a kid comes from depending on their attitude. If they're that way to any adult, obviously they either don't have adults in their home. They maybe parents are always gone working or always doing whatever, and they're like you said, they're having to raise their siblings, or you can see them are depending on whether they're going to be, they're this way, they're one way to one type of person, and then they're a different way to a different type of person, because they could be held accountable at home. They might get disciplined at home, but they're not. They're always trying to get away with something. They just have a mischievous. There's something up with them that they want to cause problems, and so and sometimes those guys turn into actually. I know quite a few of those guys that have turned into good cops, which is kind of funny, or whatever, because they just needed some kind of discipline. I was reading On Combat, which is Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman's book on combat, and he was talking about like there's like the kids that do like active shooters and stuff like that. Those kids, they all do something. All kids that do something, whether it's sports or band or whatever, even they do martial arts, they do these things and they're active. But the reason that they're good and active is because they have parameters and they have discipline and they have set guidelines in each one of those things that they do. The kids that don't do that stuff, those ones, because they just play video games or they go out and they get in fights. You might say, oh, that's martial arts. It's not martial arts. It's getting in fights. There's no discipline. There's no parameters on that. And so kids don't realize that there's a place for everybody. Everybody, it's like the idea of walking into somebody's house because they invited you over for dinner, and then you just sit at the head of the table. Well, that's not your table. That's their table. You don't just walk into somebody else's house and sit at the head of their table. That's not your place. And so you wait for them to tell you where their place is when you're somewhere else. So it's the idea. I think people lose, especially kids, have lost that idea or never knew it in the first place, where their place might be. You treat people with respect. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what they are. You treat them with respect. And then it'll determine at that point how things go. It doesn't, you don't just have a preconceived idea of, I see this person's this way, I'm going to treat them that way. And unfortunately, some kids don't get those parameters and those discipline things that, you're talking about. So, and you might know, you've got, what'd you say, 4 kids? Is that right? 5 kids.
Yes.
Yeah. That you have to have a solid structure at your house.
Well, I said we got 4 boys. Like I said, the oldest is moved out the house with 4 boys, and basically all they do is fight and wrestle. That's all. I mean, that's all they do. I mean, you hear something, boom, somebody crying, somebody has a knot coming in. That's all you're going to hear. I mean, you just got to set parameters. I mean, at the end of the day, boys are going to be boys. Like I said, I remember being there, but at the end of the day, you got to let them know, hey, man, don't get too out of hand, or we're going to have to talk about it. And then that's just how it is. But I mean, it's a process, but it's just a constant battle. Basically, they're into wrestling, WWE, and they want to all try moves on each other. So
Everybody's
somebody's
jumping off the
getting
top of the
stomped
couch and yeah.
pretty much. And then somebody's crying, they trying to shush them. That's just how it goes. So
How many times do you say, see, I told you this would happen?
all the time. I told you about wrestling. Your finger jam. So
Yeah.
take it as it is.
So that's funny. So yeah. It's just and you're talking about middle school. Go back to middle school. I noticed I've got a couple friends who are teachers and stuff, and I've gone and talked with their class and stuff at work, and I noticed that there's a total difference between, say, a 7th grader and then an 8th grader. In middle school, there's a big leap in maturity from one year to the next, and that's got to be. I don't know so much about grade school or anything like that. Is it similar? Did you see the similar thing in grade school?
Yeah, I mean, like the six and like most of the 7th graders still had that playfulness in them. Like they had that 5th grader where they want to go recess or run around the classroom and all that. Then you had the 8th graders, that are starting to basically like develop. They want to, talk on phones, act a certain way, act cool. They want to they're starting to shape their personality and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you got those two happy mediums, and then sometimes they're a clash because, sometimes you might have a younger person in an older person class, or you have a person that's been held back a couple of years. And then, like I say, it can clash at times. But for the most part, it's pretty wild. It's like a rodeo in there. Actually, You just got to know. I mean, some teachers, like I say, some teachers are really good at it. Like you got some teachers, like we've had teachers like, that were just strict. Like I said, they weren't like gonna, wasn't military strict, but they knew how to keep the class under control, and you knew not to play with them. I mean, they got other teachers, that just struggle with kids not, undermining them. They don't know how to handle that. So it's just a happy medium that you got to have.
Right. So you were there for, what'd you say, 2 years at the school?
I was there for a year and a half at the school.
For a year and a half, and then you move on. That's when you left there, and then you went to the sheriff's office.
Yeah, because the chief, who was actually my first chief, won the election for the sheriff, and then he brought me on down there, Burke County, where I'm at currently.
That's pretty cool. And so you just went right into patrol deputy. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Start off with patrol deputy.
And then you go from, how long were you, and then how that kind of progressed? Because obviously you did SWAT, and you did all this other stuff, and you kind of get into where you're at now. How did all that kind of progress?
Well, actually, I started on patrol about 11 months later. Like I say, when I first came down there, basically they have a unit called crime suppression, and basically like it's an aggressive unit. If there's a problem going on in a certain area or a burglary was going on, they'll send that unit down there. They're known to make the cases. They're mostly the bigger dudes of the department, the ones that if something needs to happen, they'll send those guys over there.
Right.
So I talked to a couple guys on the team, like, man, I want to get on the team. They're like, we don't have any spots right now. So basically what I did when I was on patrol, and that's why I tell people, I roll with them. When I was off on work, I roll with them. I started building that bond with them. Like I said, basically, I was there, they're flunky. If they needed somebody to get taken to jail, hey, put them in my car, I'll take them. You need somebody to do some paperwork, do the criminal, I'll write the ticket, I'll do it. And like I said, at the same time, I was still learning how they were doing their job. Like I said, I was picking up on the things that they were looking for, or how they talk to people, or what they did, to handle situations. And like I said, it helped me out. And basically, like I said, on days off, I used to come in, work with them, try to get in, close with them, get in the car with them, just pick up little tips and hints. And then eventually the captain of the team, he'll like, okay, man, we got a spot coming open. Would you like to come on the team? And then, like I said, eventually I got the chance to be on the team and become on crime suppression. And then, like I said, I was on crime suppression, maybe, I'm gonna say about 2 years. And then my sheriff was like, I said, during that time, I got my bachelor's. I went online to University of Phoenix. At that time, my sheriff was like, hey, man, you need to think about, working on becoming a supervisor. And at that time, I was enjoying crime suppression. Like I did my best work at crime suppression, because during that time, I don't know if you know anything about street cop training, but actually I met a guy named Dennis Benino, who owns a company called Street Cop Training. And basically he helped me, elevate my career as far as finding drugs and just being able to handle things, look at things differently. So like I said, I made some big cases there, like extra big cases on crime suppression. And then eventually my sheriff came to me, he's like, hey, man, it's about that time you should think about becoming a supervisor. I'm like, I don't want to go back to road patrol. You're like, man, you should think about it. Like, I'm enjoying it. Like, yeah, I'm saying, man, like, we're out here, we're getting it. Like I say, we're chasing people. We're getting the car chases. We're finding guns. We're getting dope. We're answering calls. I mean, we're just handling business. And people knew that basically when you seen those cars that said crime suppression on it, that either you need to get in place or they're gonna come see about you. That's just how it was.
Right.
And eventually I listened to him. I said, I got my bachelor's degree. And then at that time, he told me, he said, maybe you should think about going to get your master's. He said, because, you want to become a teacher, you want to become a special agent. He said, that will help you out a little bit more. So I went on back to school, got my master's degree at University of Phoenix. And he said, you need to start working on your instructor course. Because in Georgia, you got to take a 2-week instructor course to become a certified instructor in the state of Georgia. I haven't passed that yet, so I'm going to try to take it again in December. It's a pretty rough course.
Yeah.
I say here or there. But anyway, I got this sergeant job. I got back on night shift. Like I said, I enjoy night shift. I don't like being around where everybody else is around. I said,
yeah. You can also get from one area to the next much faster at night than you can during the day. Traffic is just there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I said, but actually, we have a pretty big county. Like I said, we have like 832 square miles. So even from one end of the county going license sirens, it's going to take you 30 minutes. And that's why I try to tell people, I say, if you get into a fight, get into it. Don't sit there and play with them. Go ahead and do what you got to do. I say, it's going to be a minute before we get there.
You might be the only one being able to take care of yourself. That's right.
Yeah. So you better dig in. How I tell them, I say, you better dig in for it. So like I said, I did that. And like I say, he already knew my aspirations of becoming a special agent, either trying to work for a state or federal agency. He said, now you need to try to work on, trying to get some investigation skills. I started enjoying night shift and all that. I'm like, I guess. Like I say, the thing about him, he was a real big investigator. He's really big on investigation. That's what his bread and butter was when he worked for different departments. He was an investigator. He worked for the DA investigator. He was just one of those type people. He's real good at it. So he said, man, you should think about it. So eventually some spots came over in narcotics. You should put in, just try it out, see if you can get it. So I interviewed for the job. I got it. Moved over here. And then, like I said, I fell in love with it. Like I say, narcotics is a little bit different than any other department I work for or entity I work for inside law enforcement. Basically, it's a lot more patient. You got to sit back. You got to observe people. You got to be real observant of how people do things. Like I say, man, things can go crazy. 1 minute you're not doing anything for a week. Then that one person calls you like, you need to go right now. So you go, and I say, then you're out there for hours, sitting there looking at this one house, making sure things are happening, seeing who's coming, what kind of car. And I mean, it can get crazy in less than a second. Then what kind of drew me to it a little bit more, like one of the officers that I work with, one of the sergeants, he's the TFO, task force officer with DEA. So we work basically hand to hand with him. So we've done some case with him to see how those guys work and how they just, bringing in loads of dope. I was like, man, and money. I was like, man, that's basically what level I want to get to. And they'll sit there and talk to you and tell you how to, establish things, how you get people to, help you and all that. And like I said, that's just basically how I learned how to become more connected with people, building that rapport. Because like I said, once you get a CI, you're not their handler, but basically you're handling them for this situation that they're with you in.
You're going to be responsible. You're going to be also responsible for what they do.
Yeah. I say something goes. That's why I tell people. I say one thing about CI, man, it's gonna happen. You're gonna get that call from the law enforcement officer, like, hey, man, we got this guy. He got some drugs on him. He said he works for you. Like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. I was like, man, what I told you. And then you got to sit down and argue with him, and it just goes downhill. But it's all about building that rapport. If your CI knows that that you trust them and all that, and that you believe that they can do the work to do it, it kind of works out. But it's a work in progress. Like I said, I'm working on a narcotics thing. I'm still kind of new. I've been here about a year. I'm still trying to get the hang of it. And like I said, I'm just waiting for one of those big cases where we got to run a wire and all that stuff. So hopefully one of those will come soon.
Yeah. Of all those things, of either the crime suppression unit, supervisory work, the investigations, or now even the narcotic stuff, what was your favorite? Obviously, crime suppression, you mentioned how that was just fun, but as far as your self-development and realizing, I'm doing the most that I can be doing right now. What of those four, what would you say was the top?
I would say crime suppression. During that time, I really got big into interdiction work. Basically just sitting there on the side of the road, looking at people passing by and figuring out who's involved in illegal activity. And like I said, I picked that up from straight cop training. Like I said, me and Dennis, I used to send him videos of me, watching traffic or on my traffic stops, and he helped dissect me and help me work on things on how I talk to people. But I have a tendency to talk fast. And he's like, man, you just need to slow down, let people hear you. He said, take your time with it. But, I'll rush through things. Like I said, I'll rush through in the heartbeat. And he's like, man, slow down, man. He said, you got what you need to do, but just slow down. But like I said, I worked on those things with him. And like I said, man, just sitting on the side of the highway, looking at people passing by and picking the right car. He said, whether it's big or small, he said, just know that you're in the right place. He said, whether you get somebody with a suspended license, you get somebody for a murder warrant, you're pulling, 8 ounces of meth out of the car. He said, your eyes are in the right place. And that's what I really picked up on. Like I said, I still am pretty good at it. Like I can see a car and be like, hey, man, we need to stop that car. I said, hey, because you could tell by their reaction to you, like they're starting to hide. they're starting to move, they're starting to fidget, and they're starting to, pacify themselves. Those are things I look for. And then you can kind of tell that something's not right.
Right. Right. You think about that. I remember the movie Colors, and, Robert Duvall's character is talking to Sean Penn, and he's telling the old bull, young bull story. You've heard that one, right?
I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit more graphic. However, the idea is that there's these two bulls, old bull and young bull, sitting at the top of this hill. They're looking down at the field and see all these cows down in the field. And the young bull says, "Hey, let's go down there and have our way with all those heifers." And the old bull, no, let's go down there and have our way with one of those heifers real quick, and we can get out of here. And the old bull says, "Whoa, young fella, let's go down there, take our time, have our way with all of them, and we can be on our way." And he's like, well, wait a minute. And so the idea of it, and I know it's a little crude, however, the idea is slow it down. You're going to catch a lot more stuff when you slow it down a little bit, and you sit there. And I remember seeing that movie and I'm hearing that story. And then when I became a police officer, getting into it, and, everybody says young bull, old bull, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. And then now I'm in the position where I'm talking to these young guys coming in. There's 21, 22, 23-year-old officers, and I'm easily their senior. And I'm like, hey, just slow down. They're like, well, what we got to do over here. You'll get it. It'll happen. We'll get it all. It'll all happen. And if we don't get it, we'll get it the next time. It's just like, catching a bad guy who's running from you. If we don't get him right now, he gets away. We'll get him. We'll eventually get him. Charges aren't going to go away.
His time will come.
That's right. And so just having that mentality where you just slow it down, and it's just like martial arts. Sometimes you're slow is smooth and smooth is fast idea, where you wait it, and you use the technique, and you use strategy to bring it in and then deliver the move that you want to deliver.
Yeah.
So you're doing all that, you're getting on that, but then you also get into SWAT, right?
Yes.
You're currently on SWAT?
Yes, sir. The way the SWAT team worked was, like I say, basically everybody that was on crime suppression was part of the SWAT team. Uh-huh. And when I started at the police department, the sheriff department, I was like 315 pounds. I was a pretty big guy. Basically, you had to run. And like I said, I never ran distance. That's something I never liked. But anyway, basically, you had to run a certain distance. You had to run like a mile in like 9 minutes. You had to do a certain amount of push-ups, body weights, pull-ups for the testing thing. So basically, when the guys tested or did their annual tests, I usually just do it with them, just to get used to it. But like I said, I never ran a mile or anything like that. So eventually, it took me about 1.5 years to get my weight right, to get my rundown together, to actually get on the team. So basically, I went from 315 down to 260. I was able to pass my fitness test, and then I've been on the team ever since. I got on the team I believe it was like at the beginning of 2019, and like I said, I've been on the team ever since then. And like I say, I never thought about SWAT until I came there. But like I say, the departments I was at before, they didn't have SWAT teams, but this department, they had a SWAT team. And like, when you see SWAT guys, you're like, oh, God, those are the guys right there. If something's going down, those are the ones you to call. Those are the ones that you need. And like I say, man, they get all the training. And like I say, basically, they just mastered the basics. And that's what they always taught me about being on SWAT. Just master the basics and you'll be good. And like I say, that was one of the best moments, like I say, as far as law enforcement, was able to make the SWAT team. But like I say, I worked hard for it. Like I say, I had to stop eating. Like I say, that's why I'm trying to drop weight now. But I love carbs. Like I said, you throw me a biscuit, I'm going to eat it. And so that's my problem. So right now I'm in the process of trying to lose weight again. So it's just one of those, loving things.
Sure. Yeah. It doesn't help that, but now we're getting the end of summer and we're getting close to the seasons where everything's about food. You got candy for Halloween, you got Thanksgiving, and then you got Christmas, and it's all pies and cakes and everything else. And so yeah, I did. I've been on SWAT, and I remember when I went through the application process and the testing and all that different stuff, they throw you through a scenario, and the scenario is, they call it, they said, this is just advanced patrol scenarios. Well, what's an advanced patrol scenario? Honestly, is it a scenario that you can't, as a patrol officer, be able to handle between you and one other officer? Well, not really, because it's an advanced one, and it's just something that you need to know. You need to know your gram factors. You need to know your all of your case law in order to do it. You gotta have this stuff. And so you can't just sit there and then you got to think about how people act and how people don't act. And do they, if this guy, the rumor has it that he just fired a weapon in there, he's got somebody held hostage inside, and he comes outside with a weapon and yells at you. And then he decides, I'm going to go back in, and he just turns around and walks back in. What are you doing? Are you going to let him go back in there? What if there's the person still in there? They're held hostage. He's already made the threat that he's going to kill somebody. Where's your mindset? Because you know how people act. You know what the propensity of people are. So just that idea that you have to have that advanced patrol mindset when you get into SWAT. And like you said, you just master the basics. You know what you're allowed to do. You know what case laws told you you're allowed to do. You know your parameters, and you go out there and you do it as fairly and as realistically as possible, because it ultimately, everything you do is ultimately on you. You're responsible for everything. And I think that there's a level of where people forget that with police officers. I think they think that we know, we think we can do whatever we want. And that's absolutely the opposite. We know we can do a certain amount of things, but we're also responsible for it. And I don't want to be held, on the front page of a newspaper because I decided to do something stupid. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So but that idea that, like you said, mastering the basics, it's huge. That's a huge thing. And I think people forget about that. So,
yeah.
So you've been doing SWAT for, now you're on it and you're team leader. Is that right?
No, actually, I'm just a member of the SWAT team.
Oh, okay.
Basically, like I say, with the team leaders is like the individual that's been on the longest tenure. And like I said, we had a lot of members that left the department, and then we had more people come on the SWAT team. But basically, like I say, one of my lieutenants, he's one of the team leaders, and one of my captains, one of the team leaders. And basically, you want to go by rank and seniority.
Sure.
Of people that's been on the team a lot. Like I say, even though, like I said, we haven't even had that many call outs. Like I said, we're in a rural department. And like I say, we might help other different surrounding agencies, but like I say, we haven't had really any too serious call outs. But like I say, they worked in a more urban area before they came down here, which is Richmond County. And like I said, they had several call outs and all that stuff. And like I said, they've been through it. And like I said, I'm not saying that our team's not prepared, but like I said, we just haven't had that. I'm not saying I hope we do have it, but we just haven't had, to go through those type of situations yet. Like when we got somebody, barricaded, or we got somebody that we, active shooter or anything like that. But you never really want to go through those situations. But at the end of your SWAT person, you want to feel that adrenaline. You're like, okay, well, we got to go do it. But it's just that happy medium that you got to calm yourself down in between.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's that. You're right. You don't want to see that. You never want to hear about that, because that's, that means people are hurting, people are dying, and you don't ever want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. But what's comforting to know is that you go through that, or you train for that there's somebody there that's going to go, because you mentioned you got kids, they go to school, and you'd hate to hear that, something's happening at your kids' school. I mean, how fast could you drive to get there? There's no stoplight that would stop you. There's nobody that's going to get in your way that's going to stop you from getting there. So, but to know, because they're not always, somebody's kid, it's somebody's kids that are danger or hurt or whatever, and somebody's there to do that, which is, you're not getting the work right now, but it's good to know that you're getting the training, so you would be prepared to do it if it came down to it. So you're on SWAT right now. You're doing are you still doing any martial arts training? Still doing that?
Yeah, well, actually my kids are in it right now. Like I said, they're taking it from my cousin who has a karate school. Like I said, every now and then, like I said, I'll go in there. I told them, I said, I'm about to get back into it. Like I said, most of the days I'm not free. And like I said, they have the classes basically on weekdays, but they have classes on Saturdays. And I told them, I said, I'm gonna start back teaching on Saturdays. I might get back into the ring, but like I told them, I said, I can't go to work with a black guy. Like I said, I just remember how them days, like you have lumps upside your head and all that stuff. You can barely walk and all that stuff. I say certain things, like, I just can't be going in here, fighting and doing forms and all that stuff like I used to. I can't be going to work limping. I mean, at the end of that, I might think I was chasing at somebody and they want me to come to work with just sunglasses on, with somebody punch me in my face. But like I said, I'm working my way back into it. Like I said, I got my new uniform back. I got my black belt back. So like I said, I'm working my way into just back to instructing, and maybe a little bit of sparring here and there. But I just got to be careful with it, because just basically because of the job I do.
Oh yeah, I remember I did my one of my captains is he's one of our senior instructors at our dojo. and
Mhm.
he wasn't able to make it. We were doing black belt testing when I went for I think it was my second or third degree. Anyways, we were there. He wasn't able to make it that day, and I saw him later that night, and he's like, let me see. He's looking at me, knowing we had testing that day, and he's looking me over. He said, I'm not seeing a fat lip, or I don't see any like dry blood under your nose or anything. I said, well, I got this black eye kind of going in right here. He goes, all right. Again, we do 2 days. So we did all Saturday and we had Sunday coming up. We were going to be training. We're going to be testing as well. He goes,
Mhm.
oh, so you're going to get all the stuff tomorrow. He's all for me coming to work all bruised and
Beaten
fat
up.
lipped and stuff. He goes, okay, good. You're earning it. So it's kind of funny, but it's one of
You
those
gotta earn
things.
it.
That's right. So you're getting into that. You're getting into all your martial arts, your SWAT, you're a supervisor right now, right, Sergeant? Is that right?
Yes, well, basically the way it works, like for most of us, like we're investigators, they're at sergeant's level. Because like basically if you go on a call with a road patrol, you'll have that type of rank so people can know that, you can handle a call and all that. But basically, like I said, it's 3 sergeants in my division. Like I said, we got a gang investigator, and then we have another narcotics investigator. But we have a supervisor who's a lieutenant, and then our captain who's over our division.
Mm-hmm. So you do that. You get to do narcotics all the time now. You're pretty much that. But do you get to do like ever go back on the road? Do you ever get to go back to? Do you want to do that? You want to go back to the road? You like where you're at, or?
Well, I'm like where I like say I'm at the point now where like I'm looking at like say the state or federal investigation. Like people tell me like you become a state or federal police officer. I said that's not kind of like what I'm looking at. Like say I really want to become a state or federal special agent so I can investigate like either major crimes or narcotics or things like that. But one of the things like say definitely with the state agency, if you get on with them, they might put you in doing officer involved shootings or child crimes and stuff like that. I mean, which if I had to do it, I'll do it. But certain things are not my cup of tea.
Sure.
Child crimes are probably one of them. I'm like,
yeah, it takes a special person to do child crimes. I'll tell you, especially, I know people that have done it and they get to that point where they're weird. They just have a weird sense of humor and they just, and nothing phases them. And they just,
it takes a toll on them.
And you have to get out of it. I know one person who's in it and they got to get out of it. They're done because they've been doing it for maybe 10 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just for their own welfare. They got to get out of it because it's so heinous. I mean, it's so weird that you don't realize how evil some people can be until you get into that sort of thing.
It's crazy. Like I said, I think one of the guys, we have a guy here who's basically like specializes in the child crimes and computer crimes and all that stuff. And I think like for the organization that he's part of, I think like twice a year they got to get a mental health check just to make sure they're all right mentally. And basically what they tell them, they say like you need to be in this division or this part of law enforcement like maybe 5 to 10 years, and after that you need to try something else. You need because it's going to jade you regardless, but it's going to affect you more than any other part of law enforcement. And I say so it's not my cup of tea. So
right. No, I'm with you. I remember going to a SIDS death, and I've talked about it before on here, where I'd go to that, and it was hard to see that little baby, no longer breathing, and I had to go home. I had to go home early and just go hug my kids. I had to hold my kids because it was just, I couldn't. It's horrible. Much less being able to see somebody that supposedly loves their niece or their nephew or whatever, and they treat them. They subject them to all sorts of heinous acts. Anyways,
it takes restraint.
Yeah. So you got it. Yeah. And then the other side of that is the investigation side, where they're actually talking to this person like, oh yeah, I totally understand why you would have done that. And they're like, yeah. And then that's when they start giving up, however they might go about doing their investigation. You have to, and we talked about this, is where you have to have that gift of gab, where you kind of get on their level, and you got to talk. And it's hard to get on a level of somebody who's a sick pervert,
that makes you disgusted. And like I say, it just takes a special person to be able to do that. Like I said, and that's why I tell people, I say it's not for everybody. Me personally, I say I know I'll probably end up getting in trouble. I'll probably end up about to fight somebody. So I told him, I said, man, it's just just not my cup of tea. And like I said, I applaud the ones that do it. Like I
Right.
said, man, it could take a toll on. But like I said, I know people that do it, or like they work sex crimes, computer crimes, and they have like 10 computer screens up, and they're online chatting to people, and they think they, talking to little girls, and it's
Yeah.
beyond
Yeah.
me.
You can call me. I'll be the guy that help you go boot the door. We'll go you serve a search warrant on this guy and pull him out. I have no problem throwing him in the back of my car, getting him to jail.
Mhm.
I'm good with that. I don't
Yes,
want to
sir.
be part of the investigation. I don't want to have
Mm-mm.
to rehash it by writing a report on it.
Mm-mm.
It's so brutal. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
and that's that. I mean, we can go all day on the differences between that and then like computer stuff, like you were saying, or narcotics itself is a huge thing. And you just talking to those people, it's just weird the mindset that criminals have, where they go in and they live in that world, and you have to go into that world, be in that crime world for a little bit, and then at the end of the day you got to go home and go back to being a regular dad and husband, and a guy that mows his lawn on the weekends, and you have to get out of that mindset. How do you do that? How do you justify going back in your own mind?
I mean, it's kind of hard. But like I said, man, even when I get home, like I said, I have a tendency to watch all cop shows, and I know my wife probably gets tired of it. Like I say, I watch Blue Bloods or Chicago Fire or Live PD when they come on. Like I say, I basically I say the way I justify it or get out of it is, like I say, man, I just try to keep my mind off it. Like either I'll play the game. I say I get real big on Call of Duty,
Yeah.
Yeah. I start losing now because everybody's getting these, better systems. Or either, like I said, I'll go play with the kids. Or like I said, just talk to different people or watch different shows. Like I say, you got to learn how to turn that switch off because, and like I said, it can become hard. But like I said, man, think about law enforcement, man. Like most time we look at everybody like a suspect at first until you prove otherwise. Like I said, man, we go places and like certain things will just tick me off. Like I'll see people walking too close to me, or I'll see people just whispering and they just keep looking around crazy. Like, man, what's this person trying to do? Like I said, I'm going to have to do something to this person. And like I say, I'll start breaking down scenarios or situations of what could happen instead of enjoying myself. But at the end of the day, you want to enjoy yourself, but you don't want to become too lax and something does happen and you could have prevented it. So it's just that happy medium that you have, that you got to enjoy yourself,
right?
But you still got to have basically your spider senses, going. So if something does break down or you see someone acting strange and you need to act on it, then you're right there, you can handle it. So, it's a catch-22. And like I said, that's the problem with law enforcement officers. They can't, separate work from home. Basically, like I say, it's just different things for different people. Me, I like to cook. Like I say, I have a pit boss. People talk to me about pellet grills. So like, that's not a real grill. But it's the best thing I invested in. I try to tell people, I say, yeah, charcoal's good and all that. But if you get your pellet grill, you never have to worry about all that again. It's just the best thing since sliced bread. So I like to cook. And that just helps me take my mind off things and just relaxing.
That's cool. So yeah, it's that I guess that idea that where you when you go out to eat or whatever, you want to keep your back to you go to the far back end of the restaurant. You want to keep your eye on the door, that whole thing. My wife and I have been together since before I became a police officer. So, but she also grew up with a military family. And so it was always, if they had to get up and go at a moment's notice, they went. She understood it, and she was able to take care of herself and do all that stuff. So she gets it. If I get called out in the middle of the night, or if I have to go and I got to work, 14 days straight, no days off, all this different stuff, she gets it. She understands it. Doesn't mean she likes it. She understands it. And she understands the responsibility of it. But the other side of it is she understands the importance of, if we're out in public, she knows, she's like taking her cue from me, saying, if I say, let's go over here, and she instead of saying, well, how come? I want to go look at, nope, we're going. And she doesn't ask that anymore. Okay, let's go. And then she'll ask me later, we're in the car on the way home or whatever. And she'll be like, what was up? What did I miss? And I'll explain. She goes, oh, I saw that. That was okay. That makes sense. Okay, I get it. But what's cool is she gets it, and if I'm with my kids or whatever, when they were younger, it was a thing where I could say, let's go this way. And it's easy to, usher them in whatever direction. But as they get older, they're like, well, I'm looking at something. We're getting out of here right now. We're leaving. Well, yeah. And you just get them that look,
Yeah, you gotta let them know. All right, it's that time. All right. Don't make me do it here. I said, yeah.
That's right.
Come on, let's go. All right. You gotta let them know. Yeah, sir.
That's right. So, but like you said, yeah, you go through those scenarios, and that's how you mentally have to do it. And they say there's people that actually I guess they've done studies on this, whatever, that have said running scenarios in your head is just as appropriate and what's the correct word? It's just as good as doing scenarios or having the experience of it, because you're getting it in your brain that you're like, okay, if this happens, I can go to that door, or if this happens, I can go out this way over here, or if this is my exit. And having those, that's what we teach our new officers and stuff, is especially if you're on graveyard, which is pretty much where everybody starts out, you got to work nights. You're driving down the road and there's nobody out, there's no calls coming in or anything like that. You're looking for something. You should be running scenarios. You stopped at a stoplight. What happens if a car comes up next to you and they pull out a shotgun or something like that? You got to have that, just run that scenario. And for the person that says, oh yeah, but that doesn't happen. You don't know that doesn't happen. You don't know that doesn't happen.
Never know.
So,
yeah.
So you're right. Run those scenarios is a huge, huge benefit to everybody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What so you want to go become federal, and you want to either whether it's marshals or FBI or whatever the case is, or if you want to do the state level, but just to do more investigations as far as being able to just right the wrong, right? Is that what the deal is?
Yeah, like I said, basically go somewhere in state or federal where I could do more complex investigations. But like I say, basically, like you might get one of the investigations that might take you 2 years to wrap up when you got like 70, people that's going to be indicted on charges, or, when you're taking out serious things. Like I said, don't get me wrong, you don't have serious work here, but it gets more in depth and you become a little bit, but you're going to be a little bit less hands-on, more paperwork phase of it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a little bit more in-depth investigation on what you're doing. Like I say, man, you'll see like with DEA agents, they'll work on a case for like 2 or 3 years. And you're like, man, that's a long time. But you see the amount of dope that they pull out or the amount of money they seize from it. And you're like, okay, well, I see why they did it. Or like I said, they'll go up on a wire for like 6 months, which is a long time of a lot of manpower and all that stuff. And you try to, see how they justify it. But once you see the money, the cars, houses and stuff that they seize, and then you see the amount of paperwork that goes into it, you're like, Jesus Christ. Like I said, man, I'm looking at some of those cases that they've done, and you're like, man, and I was like, ugh.
Right.
It's a lot that goes into it.
Right. And I guess a lot of people don't see that. They see the end result on the news, or they see whatever, but they don't see all the work that goes into hours and the years that put into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess there's another side of it, and you might be able to speak to this, is the lives that get changed, good or bad, in that process.
Yeah.
You don't see and you see the guy he's being ushered out of the courthouse in handcuffs or whatever. But what about the families who are they don't have to worry about their loved one getting, dying of overdoses, or, who are not going to be, who live in a society or a community that don't have to deal with that anymore. They don't have that thing.
And that's why I tell people, and that's why, like in Georgia, marijuana is still legal.
Right.
And a lot of people say, like you might get like a weed bust or something like that, where you get like 100, 200 pounds, like, well, it's just weed and all that stuff. But people don't understand the things that come around it. Like say, man, like even like you might have a person selling methamphetamine or crack cocaine. A lot more violence comes around marijuana. But, people are going to try to jack each other. Yeah. More likely it's going to be gangs involved, and a lot of stuff comes around, and people don't see that part. And they be like, oh, they just doing that because in gangs. But a lot of stuff is because of the drugs that's involved, and people don't understand like drugs and gangs and human trafficking all run hand to hand. And people think, oh, we're just out here trying to teach people drugs and money and stuff. Like, it's a lot bigger than that. While we want to get the drugs out the street, because you might think you're smoking a blunt and they might have laced it with fentanyl. You're dead. You never know that, but you think that, oh, we're trying to take this marijuana away from you. And like I say, man, at the end of the day, it's still legal here. So, if we catch you with it, we're going to have to deal with it. But people just don't understand that part. They just see that's one thing that, oh, it's just marijuana, it's just pot. But I've seen people that get high, they wreck cars and all that stuff, they're DUI. But like I say, a lot of violence is involved with that stuff, and people just seem to forget about it. That okay, yeah, you're on the corner. Another guy wants that corner because you're selling marijuana in his corner. He comes to shoot you, takes over. Right. But they don't put the part in that it was because of a drug battle. They just put it in that maybe it was gangs, or maybe they just shot each other just because. But one thing I learned about narcotics is that a lot of violence is involved with it. So you just got to keep your head on swivel, basically.
Right. I'm where I live, it's theorized that statistically we provide about 33% of the United States' marijuana. And because it's legal here, and so everybody's got to grow, everybody's got to hold, and the climate's good for it. So everybody's got to grow. And so, and we're not too far from the Mexico border. I mean, maybe 1,000 miles or so, give or take, but it's still far enough that now, or close enough that it's a straight shot. So you can come up and go do it. And we get more, shootings, and we get where there's cartel, there's a whole thing because of that surrounds the whole just marijuana, and marijuana is illegal. And they said when they legalized it, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to mellow everybody out. It doesn't do that. It makes it almost worse because now they know, because it's still illegal federally. So you can't do business with a bank that is federally insured with marijuana money, because and so there's a level of not being able, so everybody's got cash on them, and it's just a pain in the butt. So everybody's going to deal with that. But that idea that there's so much other stuff that goes along with drugs. It's not just easy and say, oh, it's going to be cool, it'll mellow you out, and so because it's legal now. Well, it's not. And there's still, there's ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Tobacco and alcohol are legal, but we have a federal agency that is dedicated to those things. So you're telling me that alcohol and tobacco are legal, and yet we still have to have a federal agency take care of them. That makes it much worse when something is more so. And I there's people that argue one side or the other. Marijuana is good, marijuana is bad, it's medicinal, it's all this different stuff. Aside from all that is this criminality. And I spent the last 4 years on our drug court, and I know a drug court is a nationally it's a national program that different courts, and actually started down in Miami, I think. And basically it's programs where they get people to go into court, and they get in trouble for drugs or whatever, and they find they have a drug problem. They go and they have to go with like 2 years of going to court and being in counseling and working at all these different things. And one of the things the counselors go off of is trying to get them out of this criminal mindset, because that's what people do, is they have this criminal mindset. And so they go into this thing where they think about how to get the next score, how to either get, whether it's marijuana or it's heroin or it's meth or it's crack or it's whatever, it doesn't matter. And changing that mindset to saying, you don't think that way, just try to help other people instead of think so selfishly. And I think that's what people forget sometimes, is that selfish is why people do drugs, is because it is a selfish thing. It's trying to get the next score. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, man, that's one thing. Even like from like marijuana, you'll have the violence around it. But like I said, we have a real big meth problem in the area I'm at.
Yeah,
like I said, meth is huge down here. And like I said, man, with meth comes a lot of thieves, stealing, cutting catalytic converters off of cars, stealing cars. Just like I say, different drugs bring different things from different people. Yeah. And people just don't see that part. Like families do it. They'll see the person go downhill. They'll start seeing the little, hints that something's wrong, but all that. But a lot of general public don't see that, and they just think, oh, it's marijuana, it should be all right and all that. But you just don't see the blood that's behind it. And
right.
Maybe if people understood a little bit more, they'll understand the reason why law enforcement is still so hard on these things. So.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right, because I'm darn near 3,000 miles away from you, and we have the same issues. We got meth, we got heroin, catalytic converter thefts, we've got home burglaries, we got anything. And then not only that, but a lot of that stuff you get so it messes you up, so you get so emboldened by it. And hey, I can do whatever, because I'm so jacked up on whatever substance I'm on, that they go running from cops, and they do all these different things, and they get in trouble, or they put other people in trouble, and they don't think about that. That's where there's this, they have blinders on. All they think about is what's right in front of their face.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I guess one more thing before we before just hash this thing out to death, is that I noticed that not everybody that does marijuana goes on to do meth or heroin or become a major junkie. But But everybody that does do those things, because I mean, some people, they just smoke it and they smoke it and then they go on, they go about their business. Whatever it is they do, But I do know that everybody that does meth or heroin or fentanyl or coke or whatever, they all have done marijuana, or they did marijuana starting out. That was their gateway. So yeah, one does not lead to the other, but one absolutely has ties to the other. So it just creates that criminal mindset.
Oh yeah, a lot of time, man, you'll see people that, most time when we find drugs on people, they might have crack cocaine or meth and all that stuff, but they're gonna have marijuana on them somewhere around with it. That's a lot of time they don't be smoking a blunt when they're transporting this stuff with them. So I mean, it kind of all ties hand in hand. And like I say, yeah, the marijuana's not on that same level as them, but like I say, it's almost always directly involved in some type of way. Like you'll see these huge drug busts of marijuana. Like I said, they might have 200-300 pounds of marijuana, but they're gonna have like a kilo of crack cocaine somewhere involved in there. And you're like, okay. I mean, it's still somewhere in the vicinity. So I mean, it just runs hands in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so you're doing all that stuff, but there's also another portion that I've following on you in regards to a lot of stuff you're doing, and that's your PTSD awareness. Where and how did that come about?
Well, like I said, man, just seeing like I believe I was looking at something last year about New York Police Department, or just all the suicides they were having.
Yeah.
Like that, they were just saying like officers was going to their car like when shift was over or during the shift and just killing themselves and all that. And I should start looking at it a little bit more widespread how law enforcement is just just struggling as it is. And like I say, man, because of the current events of things that's happening, the attacks and how people are trying to defund police officer and all that stuff. I mean, it just takes a toll on us. I mean, at the end of the day, man, you can have a day where you don't do anything on shift. Then the next day you're fighting for your life. And like I said, that's going to do something to you. Like I say, whether it's going to just make you mad, it's going to make you sad, or you're going to have problems at home, or you might go home and start drinking. It's going to have that type of issue. And like I say, we just, as law enforcement entity, we just got to pay a little bit more attention to it. But like I say, a lot of times, man, we'll see an officer having a bad day. We're like, all right, just go home. Take the day off. Come back in a couple of days. Blow it off. But sometimes they need a little bit more. They need to go talk to somebody. They need somebody to stay on top of them. Because like that, sometimes they go home. They they might have problems with their wife and stuff like that. And like we said, we have like one of the highest rates of divorce just because all the stuff it is. But like I said, I know about me. Most times when something like dramatic happens to me at work, I'm not wanting to talk about it. I'm like, I might talk to the people that I work with. I'm comfortable with them. But like going home, expressing myself to my wife, because at the end of the day, I mean, you don't want to show your weakness to them either. You want to let them know that you're all right. That went on, but it can create you being jaded. And like I say, you're not mad at people and all that, but you just kind of cut people off and, you just get that thing about you. And like I said, I've seen times with me, man, I've seen certain things like a bad wreck or like a person getting, like I said, a bad wreck and this guy who's burnt alive and I can hear him screaming for help. Every now and then it'll just flash in your head and he's like, and it'll just do something to you. So I just think more officers need to talk about it because like I said, a lot of times officers do talk about it. Either the department or officers are going to make fun of it, or either they're not going to give them the attention that they need. Sometimes we just got to, slow it down. Like I say, they might have a counseling section here or there or something like that. It's just got to be a little bit more that we have to do. But like I say, man, we're leaving the profession at a high rate. We're committing suicide at a high rate. And like I say, a lot of things are just happening and we just got to do a little bit better job of protecting officers.
So what do you think we need to be doing in order to do that? What's your take on it?
Really, like I said, man, I know it probably costs a lot of money, but like just basically like, man, maybe once, maybe a month for each division or each shift, you just have a person that's a counselor or somebody come to them. They could talk to them as a group or could talk to them one by one, but just reach out and talk to the officer. You're going to have some officers that's going to blow them off, not going to say anything.
Right. But
then you might have that one that can, like I said, you might not be able to save the whole department, but you can save one officer from there. Sure. So, that's better than anything. So just having somebody they could talk to, because here we have something we call a valor house. It's basically when you go through, certain things as law enforcement officer or first responder, they have people in place that you can talk to. And they'll try to reach out to you. They'll try to keep a check on you, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And while you might not talk to that person, but if somebody keeps checking you, make sure you're all right, that helps out to a certain extent. So just little small things like that, where, you give officers a coping mechanism for the things that they see. Like I say, man, if you have a shooting going on or an officer shoots somebody or an officer gets shot, immediately, like say the next day or the next week, you need to have somebody come in, just talk to the department or talk to officers individual, let them know that they have somebody here, that they need to talk to somebody about it, that they have somebody on site that they can speak to about it. Because I mean, going home, like I say, you might tell your wife a little bits and pieces of it, but you're not going to break down the whole case of what you feel. And you might break it down with your partners, but you're not going to, you're not going to want to show them your weakness either.
Right.
You might not
Right.
show them how you're feeling. So man, just having somebody that, that can relate to officers too, but that can help break that monotony or help show them that, things are going to be all right, or talk them down from the ledge that they're on when situations like that happen.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I honestly do. But I'm always looking for various ways in which we can deal with it and see. And you always want to talk about, everybody's got a different view on it, and so you always get somebody else's 2 cents, and it's absolutely valid. And a lot of times it's the same stuff. It is getting out and talking about it, getting that off your chest, getting it out of you. One of my previous episodes, I was talking with a guy, Michael Segru, and he was talking about, that very thing, that you do get into a critical incident debrief and you talk about that thing, but there's people that won't even say anything. And like you said, there's people that will blow it off. Like, oh, I don't want to do anything. So you got to get them kind of off to the side. But you mentioned it earlier today, and that was, you were talking about, or we were talking about, building those relationships with people. So if you can build that relationships, then, you have a lot more of an opportunity to be able to speak into somebody's life. So like your wife can talk to you about certain things that, let's say me, because we've not known each other very long. I can't say, hey, you should invest in this and you should do this and make this money, this financial decision, and you should go over here and this is something you should do. And it's totally inappropriate for you because that's not your thing. But your wife could come along and say, hey, you should think of this and you should do that, because she knows you, she knows who you are, she knows how you act. And then you're like, oh yeah, and I trust her. But that's that side of it, because she knows you. So along those lines, you have people in your department or people you work with every day that know you in and out, that you're best friends with and all this different stuff, where they can come alongside you and be like, hey, I noticed that you're kind of quiet today, or you're a little out of sorts past couple of weeks. You doing okay? And I know you went through that, that shooting, or you saw that little kid die or something along those lines. Are you doing okay? And, you might be more apt to doing that. So I think it's important. Like you said, it's for us to know our brothers in law enforcement and sisters, and be able to go up to them, be comfortable going up to them when they're at that point, when they're at their lowest, and seeing that they're that way, knowing they're different than they normally are. And either you doing it or you setting it up and encouraging them to go talk to somebody, like you're saying. It's a huge thing. It's absolutely important.
Yeah, like I said, just while I even talk to you, I just thought about something. Like, I mean, you're part of law enforcement. Like I say, I'm part of law enforcement, and we all have like a different network of people. And like I said, man, I had this going kind of when I was working, in martial arts. It wasn't the same thing, but it's what we call like a status check.
Sure.
Where you're at on your progression of your belt or your ranking, or what term are you in, what you've been doing. But basically, like in law enforcement, like I said, man, I could do it on my network. I'm thinking about doing it tonight. It's just a status check, where are you at mentally? Like, people might not comment on the status directly, but a lot of people, inbox you and tell you what they got going on. And like I said, man, keep it private. Just talk to people, tell them that things are going to be all right. But like I say, one of the biggest things that I tell people, like I say, and your biggest enemy is going to be you.
Mm-hmm.
The obstacles that you face a lot of time is going to be mental. And like I say, you got to get past that. Like I say, man, this is one of the biggest person that you're going to fight with is yourself. That's me every morning going to the gym. I say, yeah, I can put videos out. Like I say, every day I'm like, man, I don't want to wake up. I have 2 more hours I can sleep and then get ready for work. But I'm like, oh, I need to go to the gym. There's certain goals I need to reach. So just, checking on people, just let them know that you're there for them, and just to give them a status check, like, hey, man, just checking in with everybody, making sure everybody's all right.
Right.
Are you good? If you need to talk, like I say, you can tell me right here, or you can inbox me privately. Just give somebody some encouraging words. Like I say, someone encouraged me, you need to encourage the other person. And that's just how I feel about it.
I agree with you 100%. I think that is what is absolutely important. I had a conversation with one of my officers earlier this week about that same thing, saying, I want to encourage everybody. I want people to come to work and want to be here. I don't want people to just feel that, oh, I've just got to be here. So I'm going to I might be in your face a couple times, trying to get you to buck up. But I want you to understand that you were chosen for this profession as much as you chose it. You do this job that well. So, but I can't do my job well knowing that I have to be looking out for you. If I'm trying to be watching this suspect or something, do whatever, I have to know that the person next to me is in good shape. There's a general in the Army named James Mukiyama, and he was I don't know if you've ever read the book About Face by David Hackworth, and it's a ridiculously long book, but it's a fantastic book. It's great on leadership, and Mukiyama was one of Hackworth's soldiers, and so basically his whole idea is this: he would tell his guys once he became a general, he said, if you're going through the worst thing that could happen to our regiment or our platoons or whatever is one guy going through a divorce, because that guy is no longer thinking about the guys next to him. He's now thinking about back home. He's thinking about what's going on back there. And so it's if you're going through a personal thing, whether it's, an IRS audit or bankruptcy or, divorce or anything like that, that you're focused on that. It's hard to do your job. So we want to try to get you back to where you are, to where you can now, because our job is to take care of the guys next to us, because we're on this line and we're trying to hold the blue line, as they say, and keep that, keep the bad guys away from the good guys. Not to say we're the good guys, we're that line in between. The good guys are the people that just want to go and, they want to just mow their lawn. They want to just go to work and come home and take their kids to soccer practice and go to birthday parties and things like that. And then there's the bad guys that want to take that away, that want to ruin our livability and our civility in our communities,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the idea, where you have to make sure that if you're struggling and we need to know about it so we can help you, not because so we can dog you and we can make fun of you, or we can, we got to pull you out. We got to put you in the back, and get you. No, it's not that. We want to help you get back to being strong enough to now being that leader that you are, because I think that's what our job is as law enforcement. We're leaders. We have to lead our communities, and they look to us to do that.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, we on our SWAT team, what we did was every time before we'd go out on an operation, we'd line up and we'd have one of our assistant team leaders go down the line. How you doing? Everything okay? Yep, everything's good. How is everything at home? Everything good. Everything's good at home. Does mom know you're at? Yeah, mama knows where I'm at. She good with it? She's good. All right, moving on. And they go to the next guy, ask the same question. But all the guys were married that are on the team. And so you just make sure that, does your wife know you're here? Have you told her that you're going out on an operation where there might be, shots fired, all this different stuff? Does she know, are you guys good? Are you guys good at home? There's no struggles. There's no, that way your mind is, you're not having to think about that. You can think about the mission ahead of you. And that's important.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people forget that.
Yes, sir.
So as far as, are you doing anything? I heard you're also a public speaker. You go out and do some public speaking. Is that correct?
Well, every now and then, basically, just from LinkedIn, people ask me to come on their podcast and different things like that, or I might get asked to come speak to a youth group at different, middle school, high schools, and just things like that. Basically, my sheriff, he's really big into it. He wrote 4 books last year, and he's writing another book this year, and he's really big on public speaking. And he said, man, we have a message that people like to hear. Maybe we should try to, work on speaking engagements. And I'm not going to say I'm a public speaker as per se yet, but I like speaking and trying to influence people. But I had people encourage me, and I want to encourage others. And I had him, like my sheriff, he's always been one of my biggest mentors. He's always helped, push me to the next level where I want to be. I just need to try to help push people to their different levels.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'd love to do it more. Obviously COVID took everything out. Nobody's doing anything like that. But yeah, I do it every once in a while, and I purely totally enjoyed doing it. So I'm with you on that one. So yeah, if your sheriff ever wants to come on the show, he's more than welcome. Throw that out to him. You see it. So but yeah, you want to get into federal stuff, and you're wanting to get into, you've done all this law enforcement stuff your whole life since you were in, the last 10, 15 years, whatever. And you're in this position where you want to just do more and more. Where does this come from? Where does this heart to want to do the right thing and to serve other people, where's that coming from?
Well, like I honestly, like I said, just over my career, we're seeing like how people have been, abused or been mistreated, like I said, or seeing people murder, or the things that's been involved with different incidents that I've been involved in, just makes you want to, go out there and just stop this stuff from happening. Like I say, I've always taught, even from the academy, to be, proactive to the situation and reactive. And I mean, in some situations, you just can't be that way. But when you have to be reactive, you want to make sure that you, one, lock the right person up. Two, make sure you make a good case. So when they do go to prison or jail, that they stay in there for the right amount of time. And like I say, that's where it comes in to being a state or federal agent. Like I say, when they give you time, you're going to get it. Like I say,
Right.
make sure their case is solid. They're going to make sure that everything is in place. So when they proceed forward, that when that judge hands down those months of prison term, you're going to get it. And like I say, it's nothing more rewarding than, somebody's child might have got murdered, but you can give them some kind of satisfaction when you lock up the person that did it and they're in prison for those 20 years. Or the person that caused that overdose is in prison, because of the investigation you did. I mean, you can never bring a person back, but just a little bit of peace of mind to help them sleep a little bit better is better than anything.
Right. Absolutely. But where does that come from? Your mom? Did your mom set those morals in place? Was there somebody else in your family, or did you see it growing up where you said, it's kind of connecting now that you're saying, I have to do this. If I don't do it,
it's just come over the different, phases of my life. Like I say, man, my mother's always been a big influence of us. Sure. Like I say, my brother and sister were always been in competition. We always talk trash to each other. It's just how it was.
Sure,
like I said, my brother, he was more, I'm not gonna say he was smarter than us, but he went to it's not a private school, but he went to a fine art school. And like I say, he was, he was just at that different level. And like I say, man, they went on different trips. Like he went to New York, to Carnegie Hall and that stuff when he was in school. Like I said, we didn't experience that. But, he'll talk a little trash to us. I'm like, okay, that's fine. It is what it is. And then, like I say, eventually when my uncle came, he was an archbishop. And like I say, he helped me out tremendously. Just like I say, different things about mindset, how bad do you want it? Different things like that when he preached, that just let me know that, man, you got to keep striving for greatness. I mean, some people just want to go about their life. They just want to be, get married, have kids, make sure everybody's situated, make sure everybody's happy. That's under them, and go on with their life. But then you have others that want to influence other people to be better so that they can help other people. And like I said, I had some very great mentors or people that pushed me. Like I say, my sheriff, for instance, or my one of my good friends, Charles Prescott, or like I said, my uncle and my cousin that pushed me to be better than what I was. And they seemed like in me that I could be better, and that I just need to keep striving. And like I said, even when the guys I'm with now named he put me on this book called The Secret. And like I said, man, I've read it. I watched the DVD maybe 4 or 5 times. And like I said, it just helps me come to a better place of understanding, like, if I keep focusing on things that's bad, more bad things are going to happen. And that's why I keep trying to tell people, I say, okay, you didn't get the job. Don't worry about that. That's over with. Nothing you can do about it. Worry about the next job and saying, focus, see yourself getting that job. Do what you need to do to get that job. And that's what brought me to where I was now. Like I say, before I came down here, I seen the guys on crime suppression. I wanted to get on them. And that's why I tell people, you got to take the correct steps to get there. I followed these people around. I studied on them. I became a student of them. I learned from them. And then eventually they seen it in me that I wanted to be on it. They seen the potential that I did have, and I got on it. Same thing with SWAT. I followed them along. I did what I needed to do. I lost the weight. I exercised, and I did that. And that's what I try to tell people, man. You prepare for where you're trying to go. I say, don't just prepare for where you're at right now. Prepare for where you're trying to go. And I'm just trying to get people to understand that. But a lot of people are just, something happens to them and they'll just get stuck in a dump and they just can't let it go. I say, something bad happened. You got to go past it. Something better is going to happen. But if you keep focusing on bad stuff, and like that book, The Secret says, if you keep focusing on bills coming in, you're going to keep worrying about bills coming in. But if you focus that you have enough money to pay the bills, you're not going to worry about the bills.
Right.
So it's just all about a mindset thing.
Right. So it's called The Secret?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to write that down so I know I can take a look at it.
Yeah, I think the movie is actually on Netflix right now.
Is it? I'll have to take a look at that too then. Yeah. Working. I told you before, I'm on graveyard now, so I get to do that. So I have time at night when everybody else goes to bed. I get to keep an eye on things.
Oh yeah. I understand those nights.
So. Yeah, and I guess that's important. That's the important side of it, is that, and I think people miss that, is there's some people that don't have that positive influence in their life. You talked about your uncle, you talked about your mom, you talked about your brothers and sisters. there's people that don't have that, and it's unfortunate. So I guess in my estimate, in the way I think of it anyways, is that maybe some people don't have that or whatever, and there's not always somebody that has it, but that doesn't mean you can't be that for somebody. You can't try to speak into somebody's life, and you can't be that encouragement or that motivator in somebody's life to say, hey, you need to just start looking into things, and you need to work hard to get what you want. Nothing's ever given to you. And if you want something, go after it. And if you see something that's there, and if it's worthwhile, work for it. If you have to work for it, then it's going to obviously be worthwhile. But you can't just wait for things to happen. Like you said, you focus on the fact that your bills aren't getting paid, you're not going to get paid. You're working on, you focus on working, so then you can make sure your bills go get paid. Bills are secondary. They'll eventually get taken care of. It's that if you take care of the small things, the big things will take care of themselves sort of mentality, I guess, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Like I said, and that's why I just tell people, I said, that's why the biggest obstacle you're going to face is your mind. Like I said, you can talk yourself out of so many things. If you don't, that's why I say you just got to make sure you focus on the positive things. And I try to constantly tell people that. I mean, just look forward to what's going to happen. Like I say, don't worry about the present or the past. Like I say, man, you're going to get stuck there. Or about your future. Like I say, that's why I tell people it's so important to write down your goals. Write down your goals and write down your plan to get to them, so you can start working on it. Like I say, if you just write down your goal, you're like, okay, well, I want to become the president. If you're not doing what you do, go to college or whatever, you're not going to become president.
Right.
I say you got to find the ways to get there, and that's what's so important. Like people want something, but they don't want to work for it. And like I say, that work ethic is something that they got to pick up on their own. Like I say, man, I can't give it to you, but I can tell you how to get there. I can tell you what you need to do, but you're still gonna have to do it yourself. And people just need to understand that I need to wake up at 5 o'clock. I need to go to the gym, or I need to wake up at 5 o'clock and study for this test that's coming up. Mm-hmm. It's places I want to go. Like I said, I don't want to be stuck in the same spot. And like I said, I don't want to become that revolving door, just going around to work every day, just become, just a boss. I mean, which is fine. Some people enjoy that, but if that's not what you want for yourself, you're gonna have to work for it.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier with the, hey, there's something for everybody out there. And if your thing is working at a grocery store, then more power to you. But that's not for me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go every day to a grocery store and work at a grocery store. I barely like going shopping.
That's what I tell people about law enforcement. Like, think about law enforcement, you got so many different things that you could do in law enforcement. Like I said, that you specialize in. Like, you got people that like traffic, people that like investigation, people that like narcotics and all that stuff. There's so many different things you could do. And every day's not the same. Like I say, that's one reason, like, I want to go state or federal. Like, man, you're going to work in your field office, but then sometimes like, hey, man, we need you down here for like a week and help these guys out. Just give you something different. So you don't have that monotony. And you just be like, okay, I'm driving in the same circle, seeing the same people, dealing with the same rascals every day. And like I said, that can kind of make you become lax. And then you forget, like, oh, I deal with the same guy that steals every day. And then one day he might have a gun. So, I mean, you just got to break that monotony, just change things up out of here so you can stay on top of your game.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where it comes in handy, having those people that are around you that want the best for you, that want to see you succeed and want to see you change. And they have a relationship with you, and they're in your life. You know them as much as they know you. They know your family, they know your kids, your wife. They want the best for everybody. They celebrate. You see them come to your kids' birthday party because they love your family, and they see you as their brother and their family member just as much as their own family members, and those are the kind of people that you need to have in your life. And if you don't have that, I mean, there's people out there that don't. I know there's probably people that listen to this show that don't have that, but they can be. And what you got to do is open yourself up. You got to get to that point where you're vulnerable and you want the best. Once you start wanting the best for others, they're going to want the best for you. And that's just how it's going to go. When you start serving other people and doing the best for other people, it's just going to flow into that.
Oh yeah, it'll come back to you. I say, man, you got to be happy for other people. How about tell people, like, for different jobs and stuff, man? And that's why I tell people, I say, one of the biggest things you could do is clap for somebody else's success. If you see somebody else succeeding, giving them a high five, like, great job, and do that, it just helps you out mentally, for one thing. Be like, okay, they could do it, I can do it.
Right.
And I'm proud. I see them work for it. I got to do the same thing, and I can make it happen to it. That's why I tell people, I say, clapping for others is something big that I believe in. Like I say, you just got to understand that, man. Okay, yeah, this person just got promoted. I might have went for it, but hey, I'm glad you got it. I appreciate it. Next time, I won't be in your spot. Just how I got to be.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and get mad because they got it.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% because you got to be happy for other people.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times people aren't happy for other people. They don't want to be, because all they're thinking about is themselves. And, there's that point where you have to subordinate your ego, put it back and say, no, I'm here for other people. I want to see you succeed. You want to start especially as a leader, if you want to be a leader of any kind, you got to put everybody else first. And you got to give the kudos to them. You don't take any for yourself. And the other side of it is, if somebody's going to take responsibility for something going wrong, you have to do that. It's not on your team or anything like that. So it's putting other people first in the positive and putting yourself in the first when it comes to the negative stuff. That's how you encourage. That's how you inspire. That's how you motivate. That's how you lead people. And like I said, I think that's our job as law enforcement. And I think the media gets it wrong when they say, oh, we're just here to be mean, or we're here to do whatever. And it's not that. That's not who we are. And that's not who I am. Obviously, that's not who you are. And it's hard for us we can say it till we're blue in the face. And it just has to, there's people that on a personal level have to find it out. And we can do it one person at a time and motivate them that way. So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, Eric, I appreciate you coming on. And this has been an absolute, just a blast talking with you. I've had an immense good time just doing this. And so I appreciate you coming on. Is there are you on any kind of social media other than LinkedIn, or?
Just Facebook, like I said, social media thing. Like I said, I do LinkedIn and Facebook. Besides that, I don't do anything else. Just haven't really got into it like that. But those are the only ones that I deal with at the time.
Right. Yeah, cool. And I wasn't big on it either until I started doing the show here, and then all of a sudden it just, I do it more and more. But for those of you guys listening, if you want to get a hold of the What's Your podcast or myself, you can get a hold of us on, we're on Instagram and we're on Twitter and we're on, I'm on LinkedIn. Find the What's Your Hero podcast on Facebook, and you can go to the What's Your Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com to get a hold of every episode we've had so far. And you can even it'll take you to whatever platform you listen to us on. You can actually go and download our episodes from there, and share it with your friends, share it with your family, listen to it on road trips. It's a good time. You get great people like Eric here who will tell you the good stuff that'll be positive, and that you can get a hold of us, or you can get a hold of him, and he'll motivate you. He'll throw out a message to you just saying, hey, keep your head up, or whatever the case is. If you're looking to get in law enforcement, whether it's on the East Coast in Georgia, or you're looking to get in law enforcement on the West Coast or wherever, you got questions for us, chat us. We're willing to point you in that direction to go do what you need to do. So, Eric, you got any final thoughts for everybody out there?
First, I just want to appreciate you for having me on. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Like I say, I appreciate talking to you. Like I say, we had a good time.
Yeah.
Basically, like I say, man, just telling everybody to stay encouraged. I mean, we all go through dark times in our life. I mean, just don't focus on them. Like I say, man, the more you focus on it, the worse it becomes.
Yeah.
Trying to find that positive light and stick towards it. Just focus on that and press forward.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And you can't say it any better than that. So for Eric McCants, I have been Ken Frownfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast, and we are clear.